Samantha returned home to find her pantry destroyed, everything she'd worked for in ruins. Anger turned to resolve when she uncovered a law that forced the HOA to pay for the damage. But what happened next shocked everyone. It all started with one simple step. Samantha Clark had always considered her suburban home in Phoenix a sanctuary, a place of comfort and stability after years of moving from city to city. Her backyard, modest but well-kept, held a small storage unit where she kept the things that made her life easier: garden tools, spare furniture, and the decorations that marked each season. For 7 years, that little structure had been a quiet part of her daily routine, just another fixture of her peaceful existence. But that peace was shattered the day she received a letter from the Homeowners Association, HOA, a letter that would change everything. The HOA, which had always seemed like a distant and benign entity, was now demanding the demolition of her storage unit. The letter claimed the unit didn't meet the neighborhood's aesthetic standards and that it was a violation of their codes, a message that felt both personal and harsh. Samantha, stunned, immediately pulled out the paperwork, permits, approval forms, even photographs of her application, all carefully filed away. She had followed the rules, ensured everything was legal and above board. Surely they were mistaken. Yet, when she presented the documents to the HOA, her attempts to reason were met with indifference. The board, led by the unyielding Michael Turner, dismissed her appeals without a second glance. His words were cold and final. The storage unit would be torn down no matter what. Confusion turned to frustration, and frustration soon gave way to determination. Samantha knew she had to act, but it was clear that fighting the HOA head-on wasn't going to be easy. Turner wasn't someone who could be easily swayed, and the rest of the board members seemed to share his view. They didn't care about her permits or the work she had put in to make her property her own. All they cared about was their image of perfection. Yet Samantha was not one to back down quietly. With her resolve hardening, she began to look for another way, something the HOA wouldn't be prepared for. The HOA's ultimatum left Samantha with barely any time to react. They gave her only a few days to remove the storage unit, a demand she firmly rejected. Her defense had been clear from the beginning. She had followed all the proper steps, secured the necessary permits, and yet they were treating her like a criminal for wanting to keep a small structure on her own property. She refused to let them have their way. But when she returned home from work, the reality of the situation hit her like a punch to the gut. The storage unit was gone. In its place, a chaotic mess of her belongings, garden tools, spare furniture, seasonal decorations, lay scattered across her yard, some broken beyond repair. The sight of it was more than just a violation. It was an invasion of her personal space, a ruthless attempt to break her spirit. Fury surged through Samantha. She could feel the heat of anger rising in her chest as the enormity of the HOA's actions sank in. This wasn't just about a storage unit anymore. It was about respect, about the rights she had fought for, and about the principle of fairness. She wasted no time. Samantha immediately filed a formal complaint with the local government, determined to hold the HOA accountable. She began gathering evidence, photos, documents, and witnesses who had seen the contractors tearing down her unit. But as she pursued this course, the HOA remained unmoved. Michael Turner and the other members of the board were smugly indifferent to her distress, brushing off her complaints with a dismissive arrogance. They claimed their actions were perfectly legal, as if that somehow justified the damage they'd caused to her property and peace of mind. Their cold indifference pushed Samantha to the edge of despair. She was fighting an uphill battle, one where the odds were stacked against her. Yet beneath the frustration and helplessness, there was something else stirring, a fierce, quiet resolve. She couldn't just let them get away with this. She wouldn't. Whatever it took, she was going to make them pay. Determined to reclaim control over her life, Samantha plunged into a relentless search for any possible legal recourse. For days, she buried herself in stacks of paperwork, combing through every obscure law and regulation she could find. The more she searched, the more hopeless the task seemed, until one evening, her efforts were rewarded with a discovery that felt like a stroke of fate. In a dusty corner of legal documents, Samantha unearthed an old, nearly forgotten law. It was a relic, buried under layers of bureaucratic nonsense, but it was crystal clear. The law stated that HOA members were required to compensate residents if they unlawfully destroyed private property. It was a provision that had been largely ignored, overshadowed by more modern regulations, and few even knew of its existence. But to Samantha, it was a lifeline. The law was simple, unambiguous, and, most importantly, it was exactly what she needed. It was her way forward. Her heart raced as she read it again, disbelief mixing with a surge of hope. This could be the key to holding the HOA accountable. She wasted no time. Samantha reached out to a local lawyer, eager to bring her newfound weapon to life. When they met, the lawyer's eyes widened in surprise as she explained the law. Even he had never heard of it, but the wording was undeniable. They both understood the significance. This was not just a technicality. It was a powerful tool to strike back. Together, they decided to take action. They filed a lawsuit against the HOA, but this wasn't just about getting back what she had lost. Samantha's goal was far more personal. She wanted Michael Turner, the man who had orchestrated her suffering, to feel the weight of his actions. The lawsuit targeted him directly, holding him responsible for the unlawful destruction of her property. But that wasn't all. Samantha wasn't just seeking financial compensation. She demanded a full, public apology from the HOA and its members. She wanted them to acknowledge the harm they had caused, to publicly admit their wrongdoing. She was ready to take this fight all the way to court if it came to that. She wouldn't rest until justice was served. The court case dragged on for months, each day adding weight to Samantha's already exhausted shoulders. The legal battle was grueling, the tension palpable in every meeting with her lawyer, every court appearance. The HOA, led by the relentless Michael Turner, did everything in their power to delay and dismiss her claims, but Samantha remained undeterred. She spent sleepless nights preparing evidence, cross-referencing laws and reviewing testimonies, never once letting the mountain of bureaucracy crush her resolve. As the trial progressed, it became clear that her determination was paying off. The evidence was irrefutable. The law, though buried for years, was on her side, and the judge, who had watched her persistence with growing respect, finally rendered his verdict. The decision was a resounding victory for Samantha. The court ruled in her favor, ordering the HOA to pay for the destruction of her property. But that wasn't all. Michael Turner, the man who had spearheaded her suffering, was also personally required to apologize to her. The words he would have to speak publicly, acknowledging his wrongdoings, would resonate throughout the entire community. The HOA, facing the legal consequences of their actions, had no choice but to comply. Samantha's win was not just a personal triumph, it was a blow to the very foundation of the HOA's unchecked authority. As part of the judgment, she was awarded a new storage unit, larger and better than the one they had destroyed. It felt like a small but satisfying symbol of her victory. The neighborhood, which had once quietly sided with the HOA, rallied behind her. Neighbors who had been too afraid to speak out before now expressed their support, applauding her for standing up to the powerful association. Michael Turner, once a figure of authority, found his reputation in tatters. Word of his humiliation spread quickly, and the respect he once commanded vanished. Samantha's victory was not just about reclaiming her property. It was a victory for every homeowner who had been oppressed by unfair, overbearing governance. The case became a landmark, a defining moment in the neighborhood's history, and it set a precedent that forced other HOAs to reevaluate their treatment of residents. Samantha had restored her faith in the justice system, proving that even the most entrenched systems of power could be challenged and beaten.